Hi, and welcome to the I Teach Myself podcast. My name is Matthew Miniman, and this is episode 144. What can Coraline teach us about AI in social engineering? So, Coraline, a story about DIY surgery, spider women, and loving your overworked parents. This is a story presumably targeted towards children that is effectively dark fantasy. Coraline is a normal child whose parents are overworked. They have uh, they have bought a new house. They have been basically moved across the entire country, uh, based in the UK, and so it's like 60 feet. But they buy a new house. They move across the country. They're working their jobs as tirelessly as they can. And Coraline feels unloved. And in this whole process of moving and uh, being ignored by her parents because they're overworked, she decides to she finds a shadow world where her parents are strangely attentive now. And they are really, nice. And she likes this new experience because her parents are paying attention to her. And this is really good. But there are things that are off, things that don't seem quite right. And like a talking cat, and mice that do strange things, and a whole bunch of other just off characters about everybody else who lives in this shared house that her parents have now purchased. So, it's nice, but it's off. And there are certain things that are just kind of like, well, maybe this isn't the right thing. Maybe this isn't the right world. And that is almost exactly how AI works in social engineering. So if we look at traditional social engineering, which we've done a few episodes on, I think the last one that we did was what can Ursula teach us about social engineering? But with standard social engineering, you're being targeted all of the time. And in social engineering, really the target is to uh, leverage you as the weakest point in any security stack. The human is the weakest link. And if the attackers can target it and really leverage a human being being the least strong link in the chain, they can break that chain pretty quickly, pretty easily. So that's why social engineers target people, is because it's easy and it's more effective, leveraging vulnerabilities and leveraging attacks against servers and things like that. Those are not nearly as successful. Nearly 99% of all attacks originate with some sort of social engineering aspect. There is very little very little of active and successful breaches that occur through other means, such as vulnerability exploitation or misconfiguration exploitation or things like that. Really, the exploitation is coming against, again, the human component of the security stack. And so that's why social engineers target you. That's why you get spam. That's why you get phishing emails, because it's proven to work. I have had several clients who believe that they know better. They know better. I know better. I know I'm not going to click on that link. I know it. I just know it. And every single time I get told that, it's almost assuredly that person then gets compromised. That person is targeted and accidentally clicks a link or feeds their credentials into some link that they had, or attempts to open up a document that wasn't legit. It's because you don't know better. If you don't, you can't trust yourself. You can't trust that you know better. So you must have tools in place to help help protect you, such as mail filtration, DNS filtration. You know, this is why you have an antivirus, an EDR, an MDR. This is why you have all of that detection mechanisms to find when somebody is attempting to compromise your machine. Now, when we talk about social engineering uh, at large, we are really trying to focus on all aspects of it as well. We're not just saying uh, that you're being attacked directly through social engineering. Um, you are to compromise your company. You are being targeted by social engineering for a lot of other nefarious reasons. One of which is that when you are being targeted for social engineering, uh, some of it is just enough to give you a dossier, just to mark you as somebody who interacts with social engineering. So, for instance, if you have ever received, I don't know if many of you have received this, but I've seen these types of emails come through quite a few times where it is effectively gibberish. Somebody is basically forwarding off a an email, and all it has is just a statement, and some of it is just like a snippet from a news article or something about a potentially contentious subject, and um, all it is text, and there's not really even a signature on it, and it comes from this random email. And what the attacker is doing with sending that email, they aren't really looking for you to click on anything. They're looking to own you with that email. What they're looking to get is they're looking to make sure that your email does receive actual mail, so they can verify if the mail delivery was successful. But two, if you respond to that, then they know that you are actively engaged in your email, and you're an idiot who responds to any email that's sent to them. And so they can actively try to get into your good graces, or exploit further social engineering tactics against you, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of different reasons and mechanisms and ways that you're being targeted for social engineering. Pig butchering is another one, where you are being primed for long-term interaction, so that you basically evaluate the attacker in a sense of trust, and they can leverage that trust to make you do something that you wouldn't normally do to a stranger, such as send money or give credentials or so on and so forth. There's just a lot of ways that they can leverage that pig butchering mechanism to facilitate nefarious needs or deeds. So, how does AI work in these circumstances? Well, again, with social engineering, you are being targeted all of the fucking time, whether it be ads, whether it be other companies, whether it be attackers. It's hitting you at all times, and it's sometimes really hard to spot. And AI, because it is now a thing in the world, and I know you pedants are just throwing your hands up in the air and say, we don't have AI yet. Whatever, just go along for the ride. We'll eventually talk about, or we have already talked about, how the AI of today is not actually AI. So shut up, get into the back of the bus. No, AI that is going on right now is being used actively in social engineering in a lot of different ways. And it can be really difficult to spot. For instance, there are deepfakes. Deepfakes have been a thing for a long time. And if you don't know what deepfakes are the AI equivalent of masking a person behind a known quantity. So effectively, you take a video of something and you overlay it over the video of another thing, and you get a result. So, for instance, if I were to record this with video and decide that I wanted to take JFK, I could make John F. Kennedy say everything that I'm saying right now, and in the video, it would look and really feel like he was saying it, even though it's my words and my gestures on the screen. And that's what deep fakes are. They are the ability to inject an image over or voice over a snippet of actual video or sound to evaluate or fool the person looking at it as if it were a real thing. There was actually a deep fake service that got shut down not too long ago that allowed users to deep fake their own things. And deep faking is not difficult, especially not now. You can have deep fakes effectively done at will. Even though they're not called deep fakes, it's called video generation. But you can absolutely deep fake pretty much at will. There's paid services that allow you to do this still. So deep fakes are one way that AI is being used in social engineering. And it's really difficult to spot. It can be really difficult to spot deep fakes in a lot of ways. And, probably the most prevalent example of this is Instagram, actually. Or maybe Snapchat, if that's still a fucking thing. I don't know. These goddamn social media platforms. Anyway, Instagram and Snapchat, and probably fucking TikTok, probably Facebook. I don't know. They all probably do this now. They have filters that you can put over videos, and Instagram, I think, is probably where it is the worst. Where you have these Instagram filters that make you appear more handsome or more beautiful than you really are. You can put filters on your face so that you can appear as an entirely different person or entirely different face structure, and it's no different than the avatars that people were using, or the live backgrounds people were using in Teams message meetings or in Zoom calls during the pandemic. These are no different. They're filters that go over some things. The problem with Instagram and social media there are entirely crafted influencers who are fake. They are fake. They don't exist. They are people who are covered by filters so that they appear to be different people. And this is something that is actively prevalent. Now, in the case of Instagram and Snapchat and all those others, those are kind of shitty filters. And there are ways and instances where they are basically broken. And really, it's one of the ways to break all AI social engineering platforms. And so, this is we'll cover that in just a little bit. But overall, one of the things that you have to understand about AI and social engineering is that it's being used to effectively fool you into believing that there's somebody else. Again, deep fakes are a thing, and really with only a small snippet of your voice or a small video of you as a person, somebody can effectively fool you into thinking that you are saying or doing something that you're not actually doing. And so, this is really dangerous because, 10 seconds, 30 seconds of audio, 30 seconds of video, and now we have a complete and full attack method to send fake video, to send fake messages out, appearing as if it's you. And it's not even video. It can be 10 or 12 pictures, just enough to get a full, incomplete image of your face and head. And so this is why it's really dangerous to post a lot of stuff on the internet. I know the irony of me doing this and having a podcast on the internet makes me ripe for this as well. Very well aware of it. It's one of the things that keeps me up at night. I don't sleep well. Thank you. Anyway, how do we combat this? What do we do? How do we secure ourselves? Well, good news and bad news. Bad news is really, there's not really a way to prevent this. If somebody wants to do it, they're going to be able to do it. Shit that ends up on the internet, shit that's available on the internet, it's there. If you've got video of you speaking, audio, or pictures of you on social media, it is forever on the internet, and removing it is going to take a lot of effort and may not even be successful. So removing any of that data, getting rid of it, probably not going to be great. So this is going to be available for anybody to do against really anybody. So what do we do? What is the good news to that? Well, good news is this is a technology that we can fool easily, and there are telltale markers to this sort of thing. So one of the ways that you can identify AI-generated audio or AI-generated sound is that it takes a while for the person to respond. If the conversation isn't natural, if it's not natural conversation, it really is obvious that it's not a real person on the other end of the line. On a phone conversation or in a chat or anything like that, if they're constantly taking and pausing to answer your question, it can really be a good telltale sign. Another one is natural language. AI likes to use flowery language and really doesn't pick up on the cadence of human expression and the unique way that people speak overall. So it can really be a telltale sign as well. If you get a call from somebody who you've known for a long, long time, and all of a sudden they start speaking they start using $10 words when their vocabulary is probably $1.50. It's a pretty good sign that something's not quite right. And it might take a little bit for you to detect, and that is not something to be ashamed of at all. Because we as human beings really key off of the sound of somebody's voice, not necessarily what they are saying. So that's one way. Another way is to evaluate how somebody would speak. Verifying information that the actual person doesn't know. That's another way to fool this or to detect it is if you're having a conversation with something that you suspect is AI or something that you don't necessarily trust, or you just want to verify the identity of somebody. Again, there are ways to do this by asking things that only that person would know, and aren't readily available on social media, which is, again, another reason why you shouldn't just post every fucking thing that comes into your head on social media. Fuck's sake, get off of social media. Stop saying shit on social media. So another way to identify this, and again, a lot of this is centered around the core principles of combating social engineering by validation, making sure that you know who you're talking to. Because that is really the key defense in social engineering attacks. If you are unsure or uncomfortable or unaware that you might be talking, if you're unaware that you're talking to the actual person, if you don't feel like there's something right, always ask a question, always validate. And if it's asking you to do something important, always validate, verify through a source that can't, or that is significantly more difficult to fool than just the standard message. So if somebody calls you and you're afraid that it might be AI talking to you, validate through a text or validate through a different messaging platform, or try to meet that person in person. Try to see if you can find them in person. And I'll give the example of how this all works here in just a sec. But if we have a one of the other ways that AI in social engineering is being used is video. Again, like I covered, and those can be more difficult to spot because if you're on a video call, you are automatically expecting some peculiarities in the setup. Like if you're doing a Zoom interview, somebody's doing an interview from their laptop, and um, they've got peculiar things with their connection or with their system. Those are all things that can be a little odd and off already because the camera might be fucked up or their audio might not be quite right or their computer might be slow or there's a lot of reasons why things might not appear right. But it is always a telltale sign that there might not be something quite right if they are having issues or if they are doing strange things in the interview. So one of the things that is a telltale sign of somebody using AI to mask their appearance is that they never look left or right. If they are constantly just straightforward looking at the screen or looking at their camera, it can be a telltale sign that they are using a mask because those filters don't do well when the user turns their head. Another thing that can happen is object detection in front of the face. So if you ask them to wave their hand in front of their face, filters have a hard time keeping up with that change and that transition, and there will be a glitch in that filter. And it, might only be a quick second, but it occurs. It can occur. There are plenty of videos on YouTube where they've spotted deep fakes in interviews. And there's this one where the interviewee talks about, his degree and whatnot. And the guy who is a security researcher asks to see the degree. And so the guy reaches behind him without ever looking away from the screen. And that's because he doesn't want to turn his head because he doesn't want the filter to fall apart. So that's one of the ways to combat this is to, ask them to do something that can disrupt the video. Now, if it's a pure AI entity that is streaming live video across, that can be easily done because it's not a filter, it's an actual AI video. The whole thing is AI video. And we've seen this happen with things like AI lawyers and shit like that, where they're completely generated people in video that have no bounds in reality. And so turning their head and asking them to do strange things may not be a foolproof detection scheme, but it can definitely help with at least the filtering aspect of this. For those AI videos, obviously asking them to do things and them pausing and it taking a while for them to do that is absolutely a way to detect it, because if they pause or if there are unnatural glitches in the conversation, those can absolutely be telltale signs. Another way, this is probably one of the keener ways to do this, is ask them to do an accent. Ask them to simulate a character. And maybe not a well-known character, but a character that is known well enough so that they can do that imitation. So like, ask them to be Scooby-Doo. Ask them to be Shaggy. Zoinks. I don't know. I can't do I'm not good at impressions. I should stop. But yeah, that is an example of how a normal person acts to those requests. They laugh, they think it's fun. And, it's not foolproof. And long term, these challenges, these road bumps will become easier and easier for these AI models to overcome. But they will help in the detection, at least near term and hopefully medium term, until we can get some sort of verification system that goes beyond just these simple checks. Now, the ultimate thing that you can do to protect yourself against these kind of attacks is to not allow the other party to dictate how they are going to have these calls or meetings, because if you allow them to dictate that, that puts the control in their world. And like if you use Teams for all of your meetings, that person, the attacker, may not have Teams as a set module in their boat. So if they insist, no, we have to do a Zoom call because my computer doesn't work with Teams, you say, oh, well, sorry, I can only do Teams calls. If you can't do that, we're going to have to cut this short. Don't allow the other party to dictate how the video is going to be run, because that's another way that social engineering is being used in AI, is that they dictate, oh, well, here, join my Zoom link because it's easier. Don't let them do that. Always allow them, always force them to use your real person, your AI, or your calling platform. Because otherwise, if you don't do this, if you don't do these checks, and you don't validate who you're talking to, you can be fooled really easily into believing that it's the real person. And it has real world cost. Again, over 99% of all attacks have some element of social engineering in them. And don't be part of that statistic. Try to verify who you're talking to, because you don't want to have amateur DIY eye surgery like Coraline getting buttons sewn over her eyes. Because man, what a way to creep children out. All right, guys, that's all I have time for today. I hope you all have a great day.